Most people assume that sports obsession is universal. They talk about matches as if everyone watched them. They expect emotional reactions to wins and losses. They treat loyalty to a team like a basic social instinct. So when someone doesn't care, doesn't watch the games, doesn't track scores, doesn't feel the highs or lows, that absence feels strange, sometimes even suspicious. But psychology suggests something important here. Not all minds attach meaning to competition in the same way. People who don't obsess over sports are often misunderstood as apathetic or disconnected. In reality, many of them are simply emotionally selective. They don't invest feeling into outcomes they cannot influence. A game ends. A score changes. Nothing in their personal world is different. For some minds, that disconnect feels liberating rather than empty. Sports fandom relies heavily on emotional identification. When a team wins, the fan feels validated. When it loses, the fan feels disappointment, sometimes even anger. Psychologically, this creates a loop of borrowed emotion. The joy is real, but the source is external. Not everyone finds that exchange rewarding. People who don't obsess over sports often prefer direct emotional causality. If they put in effort, they want to see results tied to their own actions. Learning something difficult, building a skill, creating something from nothing. Watching others compete does not satisfy that need. Another key factor is sensory and emotional regulation. Stadiums are loud, sports bars are chaotic. Group reactions escalate quickly. For some people, that intensity is energizing. For others, it's overwhelming. They don't lack excitement, they simply regulate it differently. There is also the question of identity. Sports culture often encourages people to merge their sense of self with a team. We won. We lost. They robbed us. Some minds resist that merger instinctively. They prefer identities that are internally defined, not collectively borrowed. This doesn't mean they dislike sports. Many respect athletic skill deeply. They may admire discipline, training, and physical mastery. But admiration does not require obsession. Observation does not require emotional attachment. At a deeper level, people who don't obsess over sports often show lower susceptibility to collective emotional contagion. Crowds amplify feelings. Excitement spreads. Anger multiplies. Some minds enjoy riding that wave. Others remain unaffected, not because they are cold, but because they are self-contained. This difference often creates social friction. They may be labeled boring, detached, or not fun. But those labels say more about social expectation than psychological health. In the next part, we'll explore how dopamine, group identity, and emotional outsourcing shape sports obsession, and why some people instinctively opt out of it. To understand why some people don't obsess over sports, we need to look at dopamine. Sports fandom is one of the most efficient dopamine delivery systems in modern society. There is anticipation before the match, tension during play, release at the final result. Win or lose, the nervous system is stimulated. For many people, this cycle is deeply satisfying. For others, it feels unnecessary. People who don't obsess over sports often have lower dependence on external dopamine spikes. Their reward system responds more strongly to slower, internally generated feedback. Progress instead of peaks. Depth instead of drama. Stability instead of volatility. They are not chasing emotional highs. They are maintaining emotional balance. Another important factor is emotional outsourcing. When someone invests heavily in sports, they often outsource feeling to the game. Joy comes from a win. Anger comes from a loss. Connection comes from shared allegiance. People who don't obsess over sports tend to resist this pattern. They prefer emotional ownership. If they feel good, they want to know why. If they feel bad, they want to trace the source. Borrowed emotion doesn't feel authentic to them. There is also a difference in how these individuals experience group identity. Sports fandom thrives on tribal structure. Teams create sides, sides create loyalty. Loyalty creates emotional intensity. Some minds are naturally drawn to that structure. Others experience it as limiting. They don't enjoy framing the world as us versus them. They prefer nuance over allegiance. This doesn't mean they reject social bonding, they simply bond differently. Instead of shared excitement, they connect through conversation. Instead of chanting together, they exchange ideas. Instead of celebrating outcomes, they explore meaning. Their relationships are quieter but often more durable. Many people who don't obsess over sports are highly aware of emotional manipulation. They recognize how narratives, rivalries, and hype are constructed. They see how emotion is guided, intensified, and monetized. That awareness creates distance, not cynicism, clarity. Another overlooked aspect is time valuation. Sports fandom demands attention, hours watching games, hours discussing outcomes, hours emotionally processing results. Some people consciously choose to invest that time elsewhere, not because sports are inferior, but because their priorities differ. They often channel that attention into personal growth, creativity, or long-term goals. Not out of discipline alone, but because those activities feel more aligned with their internal reward system. In social settings, this difference becomes visible. While others react strongly to a score, they remain composed. While emotions rise and fall, they stay level. This calm is sometimes misread as indifference, but psychologically it reflects emotional self-regulation. In the next part, we'll look at how society reacts to people who don't obsess over sports, and why this difference is often judged rather than understood. Society often reacts strongly to people who don't care about sports. Not caring is interpreted as a lack, a missing passion, a missing social instinct. But psychologically, this reaction says more about social norms than individual health. Sports obsession is culturally reinforced, not biologically mandatory. From an early age, many people learn that sports are a shortcut to belonging. You cheer together. You suffer together. You celebrate together. Emotion becomes synchronized. For some, this creates community. For others, it creates pressure. People who don't obsess over sports often feel that pressure early. They notice that excitement is expected, that reactions are rehearsed, that enthusiasm is rewarded socially. But their internal response doesn't match the script. So instead of forcing alignment, many quietly disengage. This disengagement is often misinterpreted as arrogance or detachment. In reality, it is often a sign of emotional autonomy. These individuals do not need a shared external event to feel connected or validated. Their sense of meaning does not depend on collective outcomes. There is also a strong link between sports obsession and emotional displacement. For many fans, sports become a safe container for feelings they cannot express elsewhere. Anger becomes rivalry. Frustration becomes blame toward referees. Joy becomes victory celebrations. People who don't obsess over sports often process those emotions directly instead. They reflect rather than project. Another factor is control orientation. Sports outcomes are uncontrollable by the viewer. Some minds tolerate that lack of agency easily, others find it psychologically unsatisfying. People who don't obsess over sports often prefer domains where effort and outcome are linked. They invest emotion where it can create change. This difference becomes more visible in adulthood. As responsibilities increase, time and energy become limited. Some people double down on sports as an emotional outlet. Others step away, not out of rejection, but out of realignment. Importantly, these individuals are not emotionless. They experience joy, disappointment, excitement, and connection. They simply do not anchor those emotions to games, teams, or scores. In group settings, this difference can create distance. Conversations revolve around matches. Social bonding revolves around results. People who don't obsess over sports may feel temporarily excluded, but many accept this trade-off willingly, because emotional independence matters more to them than conformity. Over time, many develop a quiet confidence in this choice. They stop explaining. They stop defending. They stop pretending. They understand that not every difference needs justification. Psychologically, this reflects a stable internal identity, one that does not rely on constant reinforcement, one that does not fluctuate with wins and losses. If you are someone who doesn't obsess over sports, you are not missing a fundamental human experience. You are exercising choice over where your emotional energy goes. That choice is neither superior nor inferior. It is simply yours. And if you are someone who loves sports deeply, this perspective is not a critique. It is a reminder that engagement takes many forms. Meaning is not universal. If this video resonated with you, consider subscribing to The Inner Observer. This channel explores the quiet psychological patterns behind behavior that often goes unnoticed. Not to judge, not to divide, but to understand.